Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Marsh Parker.
I'm Ian Fuego here, and we have another 2016 in the theater review for you guys. You down with PPZ? Well, I'm not sure if everybody was, but hey, Prejudice and Zombies, Seth Grahame-Smith's mash-up of the historical and the literary and the modern horror. It finally came to screen, and this is one that languished in developmental hell for years. They even ended up making his second book, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, into a movie before this one. So yeah, it had some troubles, but you know what? It came out entertaining enough, I think. And Marcia, you're going to give us a little bit, being the lady, and since there's lots of ladies in this review, you're going to give us a little play-by-play of the story, right?
Yeah, if anybody has ever read Pride and Prejudice, which some of you haven't, but
I have.
The basic story is 19th century England. We have a bunch of lovely ladies that are looking to be married, and their families are kind of pushed into the new guy in town. Some people get matched up, and some people not so much. But it's pretty interesting. It's a great way for strong women in that time to actually come in their own, which was kind of unheard of.
Totally not typical.
It wasn't, but the heroine, she really owned it. She goes, you know what, I am who I am, and not only am I a strong-willed woman, but I am a zombie-killing machine.
Yeah, because there's 5 sisters, right?
Yeah,
but there is one mono y mono. She
Right.
is the BAB. That's right, the badass B.
Yeah, but I really love the mashup. They do a really great job showing the kind of attitude of that time period and integrating zombies really, really well.
Yeah, the movie essentially boils down to 5 sisters looking to get married off in the middle of a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically the long and short of it, and
It's funny how true to the real story they stayed in this.
They
Even
did.
some
I was
of the-
wondering about that. It was interesting because they, I'm willing to bet that the dialogue we heard at the very beginning was the very same dialogue that led off the book, just with zombies added
Yeah.
to it. Like,
It
I
was.
was like, oh, that's really cool. What I was worried about going into it, again, I've never read the book, and I've never been a big fan of period pieces.
Yeah.
And so this one I sort of was a little bit kicking and screaming dragged to. It had zombies, and we're doing this show, so I'm doing it for you guys. But this one was actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. There were a couple times where I was like, oi, but not that much. And what was really neat is I'm sure I would have been eye-rolling a lot more in the original Pride and Prejudice, because in this one, when the sisters went to have their conversations about the men,
Yeah.
failing the Bechdel test tremendously, by the way, for any film fans out there. But whenever they did that, they were fighting.
They were
training.
training.
They were sparring with each other while having these conversations about men. And I'm like, all right, cool. Talk about what you want. We're fighting. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
And,
But
and,
they also
and in the
did-
regular book, these were
Yeah.
just them sitting by the
Sewing.
lake or
I
whatever.
figured they'd be in their frilly gowns, walking
doing
around
their
the courtyard.
sewing circle, talking about things, and the same thing when they were having the big conversation between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. It wasn't this conversation. They actually had a brawl, and which kind of added to the whole atmosphere.
Darcy was this. There's basically 2 men that come in, and one seems to be the goofy, more I don't know. He's the better looking, perhaps, but he's not the hardened warrior like the other guy is.
So yeah, this movie was more interesting than I thought. Let's get into the acting, since we're talking about who everyone was. Now, I was both annoyed and enjoyed the guy that played Darcy, because his voice was so frustrating. He was so frustratingly, he vocal fried the entire movie, and it was really frustrating. But his character was more interesting than most other people's character.
Yeah.
So it was annoying that I wanted to know what was up with this guy, but I had to deal with his voice every time he spoke. So,
I didn't see a
but
problem
otherwise,
with
the main girl,
Lily
Elizabeth,
James
was really good.
was fantastic in this movie, and she was coming off Cinderella, where she was playing more of a dainty role, obviously, but dude, she owned it. I thought she was great. She brought a lot of just dramatic crevasse to everything, and her gravitas. I'm going to say this properly, but she really brought the dramatic chops. She was funny. She's beautiful, obviously, and so, yeah, very, very well-rounded, and she stood out much more so than the other sisters, who seemed kind of carbon copy, kind of just
Well,
boring.
it was mainly her and her sister Jane. Those were the 2 highlights, and I thought everybody did a great job. The guy who played Mr. Collins, or should I say Parson Collins,
Parson
He
Collins.
was...
Matt Smith, who also was the second to most recent Doctor Who, for any fans of that show.
And very forgettable in the Terminator Genesis.
Very forgettable in that role, but he is still a fantastic one of my. He's my second favorite Doctor behind David Tennant. So it was interesting to see him in this role. And let me just say, the role reversal in this movie was so dramatic. Like, not only were the sisters badass, but all the men, except for Darcy, were very fey.
Yeah.
They were very, very, like, effeminate and just not capable.
Well, except
Well,
for
they
Mr. Wingham.
well, they were
was...
of
Wingham
the-
a little bit, but
Of the rich aristocratic variety that's
Yeah.
not versed with fighting or anything like that, which is why Darcy stole the one with the edges and stuff. That's why he stole her heart. He's like, wow, this is the crazy bitch that I've been wanting my whole life, this hardcore chick. And you
But-
can see the blossoming relationship and fondness, which I thought was cute too.
Well, I just think they all did really well because I really am a big fan of Pride and Prejudice. So I was a big fan of Mr. Darcy. I did not notice his vocal issues as much as he had, but I really thought that he played Mr. Darcy very well. He gave you that kind of straight edge guy that you really want to hate, but at the same time you can't help but fall in love with him. I love it. And Elizabeth Bennet was amazing as well. I know I already talked about her a little bit, but I thought she did a really good job. I think everybody did an awesome job. But I think the graphics really won the show.
oh yeah, all the effects. There
The
was
zombies looked great.
there was definitely, it seemed like more. I don't know. It was kind of tough to tell sometimes where the practical ended and the CG began, because it was definitely practical makeup, but
Yeah.
it was definitely enhanced. CG enhanced on a lot of the close-up people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the head explosions, the gunshot
Very
headshots.
surprised.
Were
Like the
awesome.
first
one
kill
made you jump.
made me jump big time. Like, I was like, oh my god! Like, I don't know why it got me so bad, but it was such a shock. And then it happened again later, and I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, for the most part, it was practical. Again, since it was, what was interesting was because it wasn't rated R, there wasn't a lot of blood, but there was more blood on the zombies than you'd see in like an I Am Legend or
Right.
or a World War Z, where it's black goop instead.
Yeah,
This
that
one
was
actually
legit
had some
and
blood.
Saw wounds.
Yeah, because they
wounds,
were
yeah.
actually decaying in
Yeah.
a way you would imagine a body to decay.
But it's a nice shortcut that they didn't take in this one that
Right.
they take in a lot of other PG zombie movies. So that was definitely nice. Fuego, what'd you think of the graphics?
If we're still talking look, I gotta say the areas where they filmed it, these old structures
Yeah, the
were
atmosphere was
breathtaking.
amazing.
I mean, to kind of piggyback off our review of The Boy, it always helps when you start out with just beautiful scenery.
Yeah.
You know, and this really sold that. And another thing which you and I both kind of whispered about is the opening to the film. They do something with like almost like pseudo animation.
It's
type
almost like a
storytelling.
puppetry background
Yeah.
scenario where like you're the camera's pulling back as it's telling the story, which is like almost, they look like almost cutouts that are, you know,
Like stick
character
puppets.
representations. Yeah, like
Paper
stick puppets,
puppets,
and
yeah.
they tell
Kind of the type of
the
show
whole
you
background.
would see in that time period,
Yeah.
though, you know,
Probably
with like
so.
paper
Yeah,
type
you're
figures
right.
coming up, and
But it was very effectively, it told the backstory very effectively. I was like genuinely interested. I was like, oh, okay, so it tells why this area of London, it's sort of Attack on Titan. Like this one area of London has been cordoned off by a wall and then surrounded by a moat, and then there's an in-between area, which is sort of the influx portion of London. So, but you know, and there's only one bridge, and that plays into the story. So it kept me interested, which is more than I anticipated.
It was very well realized, and I think it was the cool look and even the solid acting, and you know, also its kind of respect of the source material that I thought elevated this, because I mean, it's not without its shortcomings, obviously. First and foremost, being PG-13, when some of the fights started, I really wanted more of that carnage. We love gore, obviously. And in this, there was still more than I expected. And
couple of limbs.
presented in a fashion I didn't expect either, with the gunshots to the head and whatnot.
But I appreciate that it stayed at the PG-13 because it is Pride and Prejudice with zombies. It needed to be elegant as well as gruesome. So I thought they did a really good job balancing those two.
It did feel more like I was watching Pride and Prejudice than I was watching a zombie movie. So I guess it
But
it
still
succeeded.
really enjoyed the zombie parts.
Yeah.
They were
Even though they were
really
a little
well
more
done.
few and far between, they still drove that original story forward. And just like Cecil said, they're zombies.
It's a shame. It was either post-attack or pre-attack. We never really saw many zombie attacks.
No.
We saw, zombies over bodies, and then we saw zombies running towards people, but never much by way of actual attacks.
Yeah.
So
Not a
they
lot of
cleverly
flesh
wrote around it.
consumption.
But in retrospect, I didn't feel like I necessarily missed it.
Right.
So I guess that's a good thing. And I wanted to mention the music. The music was appropriately epic. They really focus on scores in Victorian movies and period pieces.
As they should.
And they did the same here, except, from the very first shot where there's someone riding on a horse through a field, it's like there was this bold music starting. I'm like, oh dang, we're right into it. Okay,
Sucked
cool.
me in.
Yeah. So it was the music was definitely a bonus here, or it bolstered my enjoyment of the movie. Now, is there anything? Let's talk specifics about possibly what we didn't like about this.
Do you want that to be spoiler territory then, or?
Oh yeah, we could. That's right. Okay, yeah. Well, why don't we do that then, guys? We're gonna go ahead and transition into spoiler territory right now. So if you haven't seen Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and you're interested to see it, make sure you go check it out and then come back and watch the rest of the spoiler episode. So let's get into it, guys. What do you want to spoil first then, Fuego?
Spoil first, there was one character in particular, I can't remember the extent of his motivations in the source material, but I even leaned over to Marcia and I was like, I don't like this guy. And that was the dude who had his contentions with Darcy. And and you're supposed to kind of think, hey, he's not that bad of a guy, but ever since he first showed up on the screen, I was like, I don't like that guy with that slick back hair. He's giving me a bad vibe, man. I don't know. How about you, Marcia?
Yeah. Well, Chris, I know the story, but William did a good job of portraying that nice guy and making Darcy look like the bad guy. And then when you realize what the truth of it was, you couldn't help but have your heart break for Darcy a little bit, oh.
And it's the same in the Jane Austen source material, right? There's just minus the whole fact that the guy who's not right for her, he's not a zombie.
But that's
he's
where
just
the
a
pride
bad
and the prejudice comes from.
Yeah.
She was prideful and he's prejudiced.
But then also he turns out to actually so one of the things is when he's trying to woo Elizabeth, he takes her to this place he's never taken anyone else, and it's basically this church, the Church of Lazarus or Lazarus group or something, and
it's a good way to woo a woman. I'm going to take you somewhere no one else has ever
Which
seen.
I thought was a really weird thing to say.
Well, of course.
Hey, let me just take you away to my secret place, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that was meant to be 200 years ago or whatever.
No, I know, and it's just to move the story along. I get it, but
any foolish woman's going to get hot and bothered and be like, okay.
I'm not gonna just get on your horse and ride off to the sunset. You'd be a serial killer.
That's what some women do, though.
But he took her right into the danger zone.
He took her into this place. Well, no, it wasn't a danger zone though. It was a church that had gathered. It was basically a bunch of zombies that had not eaten human brains yet. They were subsisting on pig brains, and so they were docile. They could still reason and take commands and stuff like that. A couple of little girls, which I like this part, they were sort of snickering in the back of the church, and Elizabeth was getting frustrated, and they both turn around, and they're both fully zombified, and she was like, shut up right away. So that was a fun moment.
There was some fun twists on the zombie lore, though, one of which I liked. I liked the fact that until they actually consume another person, they're not fully transformed.
Right, and it takes
legit zombie.
3 feedings to be a full blown.
I think that's what. I believe they said that too. Yeah. And I also like the trick that Darcy had with identifying who were zombies. I thought that was pretty rad.
Carry-on flies.
That was great.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the slickest little scenes in there. I thought it was really cool. Well done.
And then Liz with the Miyagi-ish catching the flies in midair.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, she trained in China, I remember.
Right. Yeah, naturally.
So, as opposed to Japan, which is where all the rich kids go.
Exactly. So anything. There wasn't a whole lot to spoil. If you know the Pride and Prejudice story, then you know pretty much how it's going to go.
It mirrors it a lot. I recommend watching the one with Keira Knightley from a few years ago. That one was pretty good.
Yeah, and Liz was actually doing a bit of a Keira Knightley impression, I think, at parts. Like, she was very reminiscent of her and the way she's acted in a lot of period movies. So, I don't know. Anything else, guys? I think that covers it pretty well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie from start to finish. I thought it was very good combination between the original Pride and Prejudice and the zombies and the actual Pride and Prejudice with zombie book. I thought they did it really well. I thought they did way better than Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Yeah, it was way better than that. Way more enjoyable.
You know which one I'm waiting for? Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters.
Sea Monsters, which was not written by Seth Grahame-Smith. It was somebody jumping on the
bandwagon.
and
But still, I would see
these
it.
The thing that makes me sad, though, is I would imagine, and this is kind of spoiler territory, we're reviewing this after its opening weekend, and it did abysmally during the Super Bowl weekend at the box office. It made like less than $6 million. I would imagine with the beautiful places they shot it and everything, and all the marred production development and stuff, it probably ended up costing a lot. So I doubt we're gonna see the Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, since this one and Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter both bombed.
Yeah.
But you never know.
I think I don't know. I think they'll make more money on the back end once it's like spreads if people actually give it a chance. I think they'll.
The keyword.
We'll see what happens. But
I enjoyed it.
It's definitely worth seeing. I liked it. Was it way better than you expected?
It was better than I expected. I don't know about way better, but it was better than I expected.
Thought it was going to be awful.
I mean, partly it was because they were really comfortable seats. I subscribe to the Graham Elwood method of liking movies. Shout out to Comedy Film Nerds. If Graham is in a comfortable theater, the movie gets an extra star. And apparently, I might be subscribing to that. It was a comfortable theater.
It must have engaged you more so then, because with a comfortable seat, a boring movie, you're more inclined to fall asleep.
That's true. That's true.
It maintained Cecil's interest at least to that regard.
So thanks very much for watching, you guys. That's our review of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Thanks for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia Parker.
Down with PPZ. Jaime and Fuego here.
And until next time, remember, stay scared.
Why would you do something like that?